Hey everybody, it's Christine with Ziedman Development, and today I'd like to walk you through using Eventbrite as a data source to import data directly from Eventbrite into Razor's Edge using Importacular. So to begin, let's click on Eventbrite and let's click on Start. That's going to bring up our data source criteria. So first of all, if you have more than one organization set up in Eventbrite, you would need to select the correct organization. I've got one. Then you need to select what event types you want to work with. Again, I'm going to work with all of mine today, and then I need to select my Eventbrite event. So I'm going to work with my afternoon tea. And then we need to work with our fetch registrations from. So the fetch registrations from always defaults to the last time this was processed. So if you opened this and didn't import the data, you may need to backdate it. Or for right now, I'm going to backdate it just because this is a sample database and I don't have any current data and I want to be able to show you something. So we're going to back this up quite a bit just to make sure you have something to see. Then you would choose whether we're working with attending, not attending, unpaid, or everybody. Again, today I'm going to work with everybody just to make sure we have data to pull through. But you need to pick what works for your data situation and everything that you require. Finally, you do have an option to work with every attendee as a new entry or to group guests into the same entry. So for example, if you have a gala and I purchase a table for 10 at the gala, if we select the top option, every one of my guests is going to come through into Razor's Edge as a separate row, a separate participant, a separate entry, because each of them is being counted as a separate attendee. They're going to be a new entry. If we choose the bottom option, then I am the purchaser and all 9 of my best friends who are coming with me to the gala are going to show up as guests under my entry. So if you only want me, the purchaser, as a constituent and a participant in that way, then you would choose the second option and then you would change the maximum number of guests to show how many could potentially attend. So in my scenario, we would have a maximum of 10 because there's 10 at the table. So in that scenario, I would have the main participant. Each of my 9 best friends would become guests on my participation. We leave it on the first option where it is. Each of those attendees is going to come through as a separate participation if you're working with the participation destination, or they're going to come through as separate data depending on what you're working with. I am going to leave it on the first option for now, but just wanted to give you an explanation of how those two work. So let's go ahead and click OK. We're going to download our data. And we are going to work with a template that I already have set up. We do have resources available for you to learn how to build a template, to learn about the event participation, to learn about all the different areas. So I'm not going to go into depth in any of these areas today. But I do want to give you a brief walkthrough of the template and just highlight a few things that are important for you to know that are maybe a little bit specific to the data in Eventbrite. So let's go ahead and click on our edit here so we can look at the template that I already have set up. So first of all, just to point out, we always start on the Constituent Mapping tab. We do have a constituent mapping done here, and that is where you put primarily the information from Bio 1 and Bio 2. So you can see I have things like the birth date. I've got my first name. I've got my last name. I do have an addressee and salutation. I opted for a template ID and a default value. We could use an editable text if we wanted to, but I've chosen that. You can also see there's a mix of things between source fields and default values. So source fields in this case are always the data coming directly out of Eventbrite. Default values are things that we want to assign to everyone coming out of Eventbrite. So they don't have to be in Eventbrite, but we're going to assign them to everyone coming from Eventbrite. So for example, our suffix and our prefix are tables that are coming out of Eventbrite, whereas our addressee and salutation are templates or IDs that we've chosen in Razor's Edge that we want to assign. So that's a little bit of a difference in how those work. So I'm going to go ahead and save that mapping. You can also see here I've added a constituent code just so you can kind of see what that looks like. I've added a default value so that everyone coming out of Eventbrite is coded a friend. We could also change that if you had something that was specific to event attendees. That's just what is in our sample database. You can also work with any of these other areas if that's what you need. We've added an address and an email address, and I do want to make sure I show you the address because this is a little bit unique to Eventbrite. So in Eventbrite, you do have 3 different addresses available to you. You have home, shipping, and work. So with those addresses, you do want to make sure that you select the correct fields that go together. So you could map all 3 of these addresses if you wanted to. In this example, I have mapped the home address. So you can see I've selected postal zip, home, state province, home, city home, address 1 home, address 2 home, etc. Now, if I wanted to add the work address, go ahead and add a second mapping. Let's call this one address work. And then we're going to go through here and we're going to do the same things. We're going to say address 1 work, address 2 work. Then we can select the work option under city. We can scroll down and we can make sure that we have the same thing for our state province, which we do, our zip code. We've added our type for business. I've added my info source, so I can go ahead and save that. And now you can see we do have 2 separate addresses. We have our address for home and we have our address for work. We can also work with an email address. So we have that here. You can see that I've selected the email address from the source field. And then I've selected a default value from my phone types to label this as email. So we can go from here. Now, everyone can work with adding a gift. So we have added the gift for the ticket price. So you can see here we have the ticket price. We've added an appeal and a campaign and a fund, all of those different things. You can also work with gifts to add gift attributes, notebook, gift notepads. Those 2 are available to everyone. Some of the other areas on the left are not, but those are available to everyone. And then if you have the event participants, you can also add a participation. So I've done that here. You can see my afternoon tea participation. This is going to link this person to the event and create that registration, that participation record there. So we do have the option here with the event name. We can indicate whether or not they're invited. We have the option to work with all of these different fields and however they relate to what you're doing in that event. Then you can add, once you've added a participation, you can add different team name information. So I've got an attribute to track that. And then I've linked my participation to my gift. So I've got this to say, these are my registration fees. That's going to create that link so that it can show what we have. And then we can actually link the gift by doing this. So let's go. We can click our applied amount. So I'm going to go down here and select my ticket price. And I'm going to select my gift mapping. So this is going to include having the number of units purchased on the event participation. It's also going to link specifically to those gifts on that participation. There's a lot of options still that I have not covered within participation. So if you're interested in a full tour of participation, I will defer you to the video where we cover all of that. So let's go ahead and close our template since that's just giving you a brief idea of how this can work. I'm going to go ahead and select my control report, and let's go ahead and just process the first couple of rows so you can see what this looks like when we match and we get to the review screen. So we can see here in the review screen, we have 3 constituents. We have 2 that are set to create. We have 1 that is set to update. And when we scroll all the way over, we can see the criteria for that is that we have an exact match on one of them and we have no match on the other 2. So we do have some options here to kind of review how that's matched, how well that's matched. We can look over all of our mappings. If we click on the different tabs, so we can see our constituent mapping, we can see our constituent code, we can see our different addresses, as well as our email address. We can review our participation information, and we can also look at our gift. So there's a lot of different information here. At this point, you can validate, review your data, make some changes, and then you can go ahead and import. I hope that this has been helpful for you to understand how Importacular works with Eventbrite to add that information into Razor's Edge. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to help, and thanks for joining us today.